Hi everyone, this is Justin Gray from Synthesis Sound and Immersive Mastering. This video is going to be a unique perspective on a number of Audeze headphones that are in my collection. Now, those headphones are going to include the LCD-5s, the Carbons, the LCD-4s, the LCD-4zs, the LCD-XCs, and the LCD-1s. As you can tell, I love headphones. I'm obsessed with headphones. But not just as a listener, but primarily as a mixing and mastering engineer. And so this video is going to be describing those headphones, what my use is, what their strengths are, why I like them. It's not really a comparison or intended to be a better or worse video because they all have their strengths and I use them for various reasons. And so it's going to be a little bit different than videos out there comparing this to this, which one's better. Rather, just giving everybody, whether you're on the production side or on the listener, consumer side, just the perspective of using headphones and, why I just absolutely love these Audeze headphones in my work. Just for context, for those of you who don't know, again, my name's Justin and I am a mixing and mastering engineer. I've worked in stereo for well over a decade. Working with artists from around the world. I'm from Toronto here in Canada, work with a lot of label and independent artists across multiple genres. And most recently, especially over the last 5 years, I work a significant amount in immersive audio formats like Dolby Atmos and Sony 360. I've been working in Atmos with artists like Snoop Dogg, Brandy, the Arkells, Mother Mother, Valley, the Sheepdogs, Orville Peck, Jan Arden, Josh Ross, and in Sony 360 with Nikki Yor and Elaine and Black Bear. And I'm really grateful to be able to work on music and as a mixing and mastering engineer in these formats on a daily basis. And it really is not that I wasn't working with headphones and stereo, I was, but since immersive audio has really taken over the primary aspect of what I do, headphones have become absolutely integral to my practice. And so I just want to give you the perspective from that angle. Just for a little bit of context, this is the room. This is where I'm sitting right now. This is a 914. It's actually a 9.2.4 because I have two subs, but they're summed into one LFE channel. And so when I'm thinking about headphones and what I like in headphones, my reference point is the speakers. I think it's different sometimes with consumers. It's more that the idea of what do they feel like, what do they sound like, which is very important. But for me, I need my headphones to translate to speakers. And my goal with using headphones is all about translation to the consumer. And so in Dolby Atmos, this is where I'm working. And in Sony 360, I'm working in a 13.0 array of Genelec speakers. And so similarly, the headphones, the job is to use the binaural fold down technology to mimic that. And that's why I'm so focused on the headphone delivery, because that is such a common way that most people currently are experiencing immersive audio. And again, there's going to be a look into a whole bunch of these headphones. Just before sort of getting into the review or the description, however you want to think about it, I encourage you to visit synthesissound.com. Here on the left, you can toggle up and check out Dolby Atmos, stereo, Sony 360, and most importantly, just hear some music. And especially since I'm going to be describing to you why I use the headphones, why they're so important, you might want to go down here. You can visit Apple, Amazon, or Tidal. I've set aside playlists with a significant amount of my content, especially for audiophiles out there who are just looking to listen to new music. I love connecting the artists that I've worked with new listeners. And so you can also click on these tabs and go straight to some records if you'd like to. And with Atmos, I've got these short samples where you can toggle between Atmos and stereo in real time with gain-matched files with headphones only to be able to hear that binaural translation. And all of that is being designed with these headphones. So now to the headphone part. Currently, and I've done about 500 songs in Dolby Atmos and about 150 in Sony 360. My workflow always begins in the speakers. The designing of an immersive audio production, a mix, is all about listening to it in the three-dimensional space, using a world-class speaker array that is properly tuned for equalization and timing, and really dialing in that experience. Now, the reality is, as so many of you know, whether in stereo or immersive audio, not everybody has the opportunity to listen to a hi-fi speaker-based playback system. In stereo, in 5.1, let alone in 7.1.4 or 9.1.4. And that's where these adaptive immersive audio technologies especially, but also stereo, of course, a significant amount of people are listening in headphones. And so when I'm working on headphones, what I want is I trust my speakers. My room is extremely treated to a mastering grade. I use a Trinov tuning system to flatten the room even more. The speakers already are coming in at a mastering grade level. These are Lipinski L707s. What I want out of my headphones is I want them to represent the speaker array as much as possible, from a tonality standpoint, from an imaging standpoint, but I also want them to give me successful translation of the headphone experience to whomever is listening. I'm usually assuming that a listener is not going to be using a pair of Audezes. Rather, they're going to be using a pair of AirPods or a pair of Apple headphones or Sony headphones, like consumer grade headphones. And so these headphones to me are the equivalent in quality and translatability to my mastering grade speakers. And I have selected them and I use them like that. And so just going down the line, these are the LCD-5s. Right now, the most critical pair of headphones that I have are these. The LCD-5s present everything with incredible detail, some of the most detail that I've experienced in any headphone, without any major bumps along the way. If anything, I would describe them as slightly bright in the upper mid register and a tiny bit in the highs, and slightly, not rolled off, but a little bit less present than you might be used to in a headphone in the bass category. But that's just because it's actually pretty flat. And so I would describe them as very honest with a tendency towards hyperclarity. The reason I love these is because it lets me look at transient information, sibilance, which is especially important in immersive binaural content, and that upper mid-range, which sometimes in speakers can be forgiving to a degree. I mean, my speakers, if something sounds amazing, the speakers, for me, it translates to the consumer almost always. But there are moments where what I call sonic averaging, making a decision between noticing something on a pair of headphones and trying to average between the speaker and the headphone experience, just to make sure that there's not going to be any surprises. And with a pair of headphones like this, I find that with every single one, especially these days with my Dolby Atmos and Sony 360 work, it ensures that that upper mid-range and top end is going to come out smooth, because if it sounds good in here, it's going to sound good on any set of headphones, especially making sure that it doesn't get harsh or too mid-rangey. These are my finishing headphones for immersive audio and for stereo work. They are also the most comfortable, light pair of headphones for the amount of power that they have that I've ever worn. That's why I'm wearing them in this video. I could wear these all day, which is very important, especially with my immersive audio work, because those can be much longer headphone listening sessions than I was used to in stereo. My number twos, although I might describe them as number ones in a couple of ways as well, are the Carbons. These electrostatic headphones are, I will say, the most glorious pair of headphones I've ever heard in my life. The way that these electrostatic headphones are able to present the audio from a tonal standpoint, from a depth and imaging standpoint, is sort of like, it's not the exact same, of course, but I'm just going to describe it like it's the closest to the speaker listening experience I've had. This sense of honesty, this sense of realism is uncanny. They are also so comfortable. This is where, I'm sort of jumping in between. I mean, as an engineer, if I'm going to be wearing them for a while, they need to be comfortable. But I'm not maybe wearing them quite as long as an audiophile might, sitting back in a chair and listening to a couple of records. That would probably be a longer listening session than I'd be doing in a row. This is a pair that you could put on and have on for a long time. They breathe, they feel incredible, and the sound is it's it's truly magical. Everybody who's come in here and had to listen to their masters with these headphones has never heard something quite like it. I do not EQ these headphones. I like what they do. I like as they are. I do have a little bit of EQ here, which was suggested by the great Bob Katz. Bob did a lot of research with the carbons and came up with an EQ. I tried it. I love it. It's a tiny little bit of bump in the lows and the highs, and a little, little curvatures here and there. You can look up Bob's EQ online and see what it is. I apply that EQ with my Avid Matrix. I have a SPQ card that allows me to have a super high quality equalizer right on my outputs before my DAC. So those headphones are being powered by Mjolnir. Let me just remind myself the exact letters. The KG-SSHV amplifier for electrostats. The Mjolnir it's lovely. It sounds incredible. There's a one above this, the Carbon, which is even more expensive, and it has tubes, but ultimately this one is a solid state version of that. And by the way, I feed all of my headphone amplifiers with a DAC from the Avid Matrix, which is essentially Digital Audio Denmark's box. Super, super, super transparent. They're also the same DACs that feed my speakers, so there's that consistency. The Carbons, I will say, they're warm. They have a mid-range presence. As a listener, I could not imagine having a more pleasurable listening experience than the Carbons. They have a certain honesty in the mid-range and a presence in the mid-range, again, very speaker-like, that is unbelievable. They don't quite have the same hyper detailed clarity in the top end, and they have a very warm, it's not that it's not tight, but a very open low end that feels natural, where these are like tight low end, and the LCD-5 sort of open up in the top. And so my workflow these days, I work on speakers, I work till I'm happy. A lot of time I'm doing what I refer to as spatial remixing, which is I'm working on stereo content that was produced in stereo, and then I'm bringing it into the Dolby Atmos world. So I'm constantly A/Bing, I'm getting it to where I want. Then I'm going into the Carbons next. It's the closest to my speaker listening experience. I'm working on those headphones for a while. I will make critical decisions on those headphones. They're that good in binaural, even though I have a 914. I'll just make sure that levels and imaging and sort of think about phase relationships of things within binaural, make a lot of binaural setting decisions. Then I pop over to these, and this to me is like the equivalent of just whatever's there, whatever gloss is there, whatever is hiding things in any regard, you just take it off and you see the file for what it is. The LCD-5s have this ability of just saying, this is what this is. There's nothing in its way. And again, even if it's a little hyped in that upper mid register, that's a major benefit for dealing with harshness and the amount of clarity. Now, so from a producer side, I think I'm making it, from a mix master side, I think I'm making it pretty clear. If I was going to sit down with either of these on my, in a chair, I mean, I don't necessarily have that audiophile situation, but I'm imagining, I've got a chair, my amp's beside a nice quiet room to listen to some records. It's a tough call. I'd probably personally go with the Carbons, just because I love that experience. But if you're a detail person, you love transients like I do, these ones. And if you're ever going to travel, definitely these ones, because they'll work with any amp. Speaking of amps, all of my other Audezes, everything that is planar magnetic, is being powered by SPL, the Phonitor series. So I have a Phonitor E and I have a Phonitor 2. The reason I have two of them is I like to have multiple headphones set up, and if you mix or master audio, you know that the mind forgets things very quickly. So I need to be able to put it down, put another pair on, put it down, especially when it comes to mastering and sonic averaging. I take that very, very seriously in my work, and so I've got these two amps here. So the SPL Phonitor series, I feel like it just gives me clean, open, transparent gain. It gives the headphones all the power that they need. Not that these are that hungry. Next. These were my first sort of journey into the Audeze world. And I got these before immersive audio was really a thing. I've had these for quite some time. And I mean immersive audio for music, because immersive audio has obviously been around. And I should say object-based immersive audio, the revolution of it with Atmos and Sony 360, because immersive audio has been around for decades. So the LCD-4s. The LCD-4s were what changed my whole relationship with headphones. These headphones, first of all, although they're the heaviest, and I will discuss that, when you put them on your head, the way that the pads are, there's nothing quite as, it's just like it's a sitting in a world-class beanbag chair. That's how I'll describe it. It feels so good. The feeling, the way that they're crafted, the way that these pads are, and yeah, they're much bigger and they sit out bigger on the head. The LCD-4s are definitely slightly on the darker side. What they can do that I think that neither of the other two headphones can do right now, when this pair of headphones is on, even myself working in here every day, 1 out of 5 times, I have to double check that my speakers are not on and that I'm actually listening to headphones. There is something about the soundstage that is so honest, it's so real, that I can forget that I'm wearing headphones, minus that they are a bit on the big side. Now, the highs are definitely rolled off. Once I got into the LCD-5s and the carbons, but especially the LCD-5s, the highs are rolled off. As a result, you just need to be aware of that as a mastering engineer, or I think that these would deserve a subtle compensating EQ. But at the same time, the mid-range is absolutely stunning and honest, and the lows are the greatest of any headphone I've ever experienced on these. If you've ever been in a proper Atmos room, and here I've got 2 Lipinski L150s, giant, with sand in the casings. They weigh like 200 pounds each. They 15-inch drivers, these massive speakers. The LFE experience in this treated room with proper, timing delays all dialed in properly is really special. It's a really special thing to experience what an LFE can do here. This is the closest I've ever experienced in headphones. This represents to me what an LFE feels like. And I still would never say that you can truly judge an LFE in headphones. You can't. But this would allow me to dial in levels in an accurate way. And what I might say is that from a consumer end, it's a tough battle between the carbons and this for that just sort of honest, warm, lush, but still on the transparent side of all of those adjectives. That's what these can do. This is a pair that when I'm doing a shorter listening session or I'm showing a client something, I'm still sometimes inclined to put these on because they just feel like the speakers, and it demonstrates what binaural, I feel like these headphones taught me what binaural could do. And I still reference them and I still have this love for them. The only criticism I have is when I was in stereo, it wasn't an issue. I would only wear them for 10, 15 minutes at a time because in stereo, I work on my speakers. I sort of check on headphones, make sure there's no problems. Now that I'm doing much longer parts of my workflow in headphones, the weight, eventually, if I'm doing a really long day, the weight can get to me personally. That being said, I'm not a big person. My neck's not huge. It just depends on your body type. And so, but just from a pure listening standpoint, I've got to give a very special nod to them in the lows and the low mids. Cue in the LCD-4zs. I'm sure in the States it's 4z. This is the answer. This is the answer to the weight. And I don't know if I said it earlier, but I am an Audeze artist. So I have the honor of working with Chris and everybody on the team. They're incredible. They care so much and they create these unbelievable products. And so, again, I'm not selling anybody anything. I'm just describing the things that I love so that you might get something out of it. The 4Zs are light. They're not quite as light as this, but they're getting on that light side, very wearable for long stages. They absolutely carry the weight of the LCD-4s. They don't quite have the same low to low mid integration. There's a little bit more clarity in the bottom, which can actually be a really good thing. And they do have a tiny bit more highs. If you've ever worn the LCD-Xs, it feels a little bit like that. I would say that these don't have quite as honest of a high register as these, but these have a more honest low register than these. I'd love to like just take these, or basically take these in the LCD-4s or these and put them into the same headphone, but then they wouldn't be the same headphone, right? Everything comes at a design. Everything's designed for a reason. The LCD-4zs are a complete win on almost like the happy medium of everything that I've described. Close back. Everything I've described so far has been open back, of course. I love open back. I wear open back all the time, but I'm in a perfectly quiet environment, and they obviously can lead to the most transparent EQ curves, and the spatialization, I think, is just more honest. The XCs, though, are the best closed back headphone that I know of. I've tried a few. I'm not saying that there are not great headphones up there. I'm an Audeze lover. I love the sound. I love what they do, and I love the what they provide me as a mastering engineer, as a mixing engineer, for translation, so that when I hear something, I can trust it just the same as my speaker setup, which is what I want. And the XCs, for a closed back headphone, they definitely have more highs. They're definitely a little bit brighter in that top end. Really great lows. The mids might be ever so slightly scooped in comparison to that rich experience we get with these others, but that's just the nature of closed back headphones in my experience. So it's just a little harder to get that mid-range totally accurate. Why do I have them? In this room, although I don't do it so much anymore, but I've produced a lot of music and I do a lot of overdub tracking on records that I produce. And so I can't wear open backs because I don't want the bleed in the same room, because this room I don't have I just need to be in the same environment. I would also take these if I was ever doing live tracking, or I was doing live mixing. During the COVID period, I did a bunch of like online sort of live mix master for different broadcasts. And these headphones provided that closed back experience as close as I can get to the rest of that Audeze transparent sound. A little bit bright, a little bit more angles, a little bit more curves going on. But as for a closed back headphone, I can't think of one better. Very comfortable. And again, when I make decisions in them, I take them off and I'm off to the races with my speakers. It's not like I've entered an entire different universe. And the one other I was going to mention is I'm just looking for them. The LCD-1s, which I don't have them here. Anyways, they're around somewhere in the studio. The LCD-1s are just an awesome travel pair of headphones. Honestly, they're the best affordable headphones out there. I would suggest them to anybody. Anyone just getting into mixing, getting into mastering, wants to experience open back headphones for the first time, wants to just get into that sound, get into, people in the hi-fi world call it like the Audeze house sound. Sure, if that's what you want to call it, but getting into the world of a transparent headphone that you can start to trust. I have been on the road where I've taken those and done critical mix notes with them. I wouldn't master with them, but doing critical mix notes with them, getting mixes started, all those kinds of things. They're small, they fold up, really good. So back to the top. For me these days, the Carbons and the LCD-5s, they're my pair. That the pair of these two things leads to, for me, is very confident translation into whoever is listening on whatever they're listening, which is a mastering engineer, what I want. And if you do end up visiting the website, checking out some of the work that I've done, and more importantly, the work that those artists have created, now you know. Now you know whether it's on the production side, or I'm hoping that there's some audiophiles who are like, oh, cool, I have these headphones, or I've been curious about them. Go listen to those files, and you'll get a sense of the fact that, these headphones have been a huge part of tailoring that binaural experience, especially if you're in a streaming service where you are toggling between stereo and Atmos or stereo and 360. I am extremely focused on making sure that those things match in some regard. And that is because when I'm working on something like a stereo master that's already been done, that's being provided to me like a piece of art that I am now going to spatially remix, but it is the template. And so these headphones allow me to hear that in its entirety, like having like a great lighting system on a piece of art that you need to copy. So you can just see all of the colors properly, exactly as they were. And then at least no matter what I do with my spatialization, whether it's subtle or more aggressive or very spatial or more sort of stereo plus, there's so many ways to do things aesthetically. The music tells me what to do in that regard, but these let me make those decisions just as confidently as my speaker system. So I hope this helped. I hope it gave some clarity around the perspective of all of these headphones that the hi-fi world likes to talk about, but more from the production side. And if you're on the production side, hopefully this gives just a little view into the perspective on what they can do for you. And honestly, choose one, or a different one, of course, but I can confidently say that if you choose one of these headphones and you get to know them, you work a lot in them, and you develop a relationship with them, that they will become a great companion in creating beautiful music. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.